Hey, welcome everyone to Dog Trainers Connection. I am not Joel Filderman.
Hi.
And I would point you to the guy who is, but I don't know what corner of the screen he's going to be on. Anyway, obviously we're all in a pretty jolly mood, maybe because it's a couple of days before Thanksgiving. And we had a really difficult time coming up with a topic. And we had some laughs and we had some fun trying to come up with a topic prior. But here we are. So you're just going to have to deal with our insanity and we'll see where it goes. And I think, but I'm not entirely sure, that we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving and pet safety or pet do's and don'ts. Am I on the right track, everyone?
Sure, that sounds like a plan.
And dogs attacking livestock, but that's a whole different thing.
Are dogs attacking turkeys?
Just for everyone watching, that's kind of where our heads were at. We went from livestock issues in Australia to Thanksgiving pet safety. So that being said, I am going to choose Helen to start us off and just talk about some Thanksgiving Day do's and don'ts or safety or myths, whatever you want to do. It's all yours.
Okay. All righty. Well, let's see. I think that safety very often is, especially with things like during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, I think a lot of safety issues are pretty obvious, but, well, to us, they're obvious.
Sure.
But people just doesn't occur to them to do certain things or not do certain things. So if you're cooking Thanksgiving Day dinner, personally, I'd gate the kitchen off and not let the dog or dogs in. Keep them out of the kitchen. They don't need to be there. If they're little, they could get underfoot. If they're big, they could be jumping on the counter or the stove, and it gets hot in there anyway if you've got ovens going. So if you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner, I would keep the dogs out. I would find a place for them. You want to make a spot for your dog if you're having a lot of people over. Maybe you can put them in a different room and get them set up with, a bed and a chewy, and maybe you take a Kong or other stuffing type, other toy that is meant to be stuffed and fill it with a nice little present for a Thanksgiving dinner for your dog. Your dog can have most of what you eat. There's a lot of myths out there about what your dog can have. Oh, you can't give them this, you can't give them that, you can't.
Such as?
You can't, some places go so far as to say you can't give them turkey, which is crazy.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. You can't give them gravy. You know what? You don't want to give them too much gravy. It's rich, it's fattening, but a little bit of gravy to juice things up is not a problem. A lot of places say mushrooms. Basically, if you're putting mushrooms in your meal, your dog, it's not going to hurt your dog. If you can eat them, they can eat them. But that said, they don't really they're not into mushrooms.
Unless it's in gravy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we were back in college. No. But a different kind of mushroom.
And onions, obviously you don't want to be handing your dog chunks and chunks of onions, but if you flavored something with a little bit of onion powder or a little bit of minced onion, if you flavored things with garlic.
That was going to be my next question, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is you don't want to be handing your dog cloves of garlic, but if you flavored it with garlic powder, it's probably fine. There's actually a lot of dog treats out there that are flavored with garlic. You just don't want them eating garlic, chunks of garlic, because, that would get anyone sick, I think. Everybody knows about, or seems to know about chocolate, but my bigger concern, particularly around Thanksgiving time, would be grapes and raisins. A lot of people put raisins in their stuffing, and that can be really serious for your dog. Some dogs react very, very poorly to grapes. It can cause renal failure, and it's not necessarily, a big dog needs to eat a lot of grapes.
Sure.
It could just be one or two grapes could cause it. I've also known people.
Of course, that could be regular grapes that have all the pesticides on them, but that's another
Could be. I don't,
Sorry.
I don't know, but I just know that grapes have been linked to renal failure in dogs, and some dogs eat them fine, no problem, but other dogs doesn't take much. So you want to be really careful about raisins, which are just dried grapes. And let's see. Well, that's about it. I would keep them away from, a lot of activity. You have a lot of people around, little kids, a lot of dogs, yeah, they may be friendly or they may like people, but after a while it becomes overwhelming and they need a place to just go chill out. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Good advice.
Bonnie, any of those food myths that Helen missed?
I agree with her that a dog that's used to just getting dry kibble every day and just dry food and no moist food and meat and people food probably would probably be throwing up and maybe have diarrhea if they had too much stuffing, turkey, skin, all of that. I think a dog that was more used to people food, either added to their meals and, I just, as Helen said, too much of it is going to harm a dog. But I think a dog.
Well, wouldn't that harm a person? I mean,
sure,
a dog. Sure. Yeah, I mean, let's talk it honestly. Or, it's like, okay, we're getting into, it's don't overfeed the dog. Well, yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving, we all know that people overfeed themselves. So,
Yep. But I really think that a dog that's used to getting table scraps and some meat and something about just that dry food, I think sensitizes them to other things. And,
yes.
And their bodies just can't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that experience in training where I'm using tons of food in the training with somebody else's dog that only gets kibble and only gets dry treats, that the dog gets sick at night and is throwing up and that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So one has to be careful about that as far as the food.
Yes. And while we people may overeat, we don't poop in the corner.
Speak for yourself.
I was going to say most of us don't, but
I knew you were going to say that.
Steve, anything you have to watch with a gathering of people with dogs? Is there something in particular that people should be on the that they should be watching out for, that they should be looking for with a dog with a bunch of people in the same room or in a bunch of rooms?
I favor the idea of like getting the dog out of the space pretty much. They don't need the aggravation, but I think that most owners already know. Like there's some dogs that can eat out of a garbage can. It doesn't matter what's in it. They're not going to get sick. And then there are other dogs. One thing will cause like screaming diarrhea, projectile vomit, just the worst of the worst. But I think a lot of folks already know that about their animals. It's, my dog can't. And whatever the reason, maybe it should have been a little more open when it was a puppy to various things or whatever. Sure. Maybe this particular dog just doesn't do well with beef or some protein source or who knows what. So I think that, a lot of folks are kind of already like okay with that, or they know when their dog can have a little bit. And I think how much maybe is also like one of those weight things, like even some of these toxic things like grapes and raisins. I mean,
sure.
If you've got a big dog, I think it's going to take more grapes or raisins before they start wrecking the kidneys. But, that's best not to mess with that. But I'm more concerned really with afterward, there's usually the carcass of a turkey and whatever anybody didn't eat. I remember we once took a corn cob out of a Scotty right after Thanksgiving. And the funniest thing was that, we took it out. We put the nasty, at this point, green corn cob in a bag to give to the owner because, it costs a lot of money to get it taken out of them, cutting the dog to get it out. And the owner said, "I'm not paying the bill." And the doctor said, "Why not?" And he said, "That corn cob can't be from my dog." And the vet said, Really? You know, I'm telling you, this corn cob came out of your dog. And he goes, impossible. We didn't eat corn. That's what he said.
Okay.
The dog got the corn cob somewhere,
Of
right?
course.
So this is, you know, what I'm saying is like, look, people, they don't get rid of, you know, what they need to and where and how. If you put something in the garbage and you were really good at on Thanksgiving Day about not giving your dog this and that, but you fail to get the garbage out in a safe place, your dog might get into the worst of it, not even the best of it, because now it's nothing but grizzle and bones, you know. And so you want to see a dog get real sick, let them into the garbage after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So you got to manage, I think, that, you know, plus, you know, the concept of putting them away, because I think if you got a lot of family around and there are children, who knows what they're walking around with in their hand? I could see a kid walking around with a corn cob, chomping on some corn, you know, I mean, big enough dog.
Going here. Yeah.
Even if it's not here, it's like, I'm taking that. You know,
yeah, right.
Let me try some corn, you know, so
true.
whatever. You got to be super careful. I mean, it's just Christmas is coming too, and it's the same thing. How much tinsel did we take out of the intestine of cats? You know, just people, they're not careful about, you know, what they're doing and how the animals might respond to the age. But Thanksgiving's a good time, you know. I mean, it's good for the animals. I like giving them a little. My dog's always got a little something. So
I think most people do that. Little piece of pizza crust or the cheese.
It's
or
Thanksgiving.
Donuts. People give their
It's
donuts.
Give.
Donuts.
Well, yeah, if you're eating in a little piece.
I never give up my donuts.
You got to send. Well, that's touche, Helen.
But you'll get turkey.
And also, I guess, Steve, you were talking about garbage. While raw bones are safe for dogs from the people who believes in raw feeding and that it's okay, in moderation in terms of the bones, but cooked bones are definitely a no-no because they splinter.
Right.
They can splinter. And then again, seen dogs, you know, on the streets of New York, grab a chicken wing and cooked and chomp it down, and they're fine.
But still, if it's a wing or a leg,
yes,
a bone.
But you're talking about a carcass.
And, you know, if they jump into a carcass, they're eating them all.
That's it. The whole thing. Yeah, you're right.
And they're not passing that. That is not coming through. So, you know, and just, you know, I hate to harp on the cost of veterinary medicine these days, but you are in deep trouble if you've got to bring a dog in that kind of shape. Not just for the dog's sake, but, you know, your pocket's going to hurt when it's all said and done. Hopefully they can like salvage your poor dog if it gets into that situation. But I have seen like some terrible, dogs that have pancreatitis. I mean, maybe you don't know, and the dog gets a little bit of rich meat and you got a big problem. So, you know, that's just the kind of stuff that makes somebody like me a little nervous about the holiday.
You know, I don't know if anyone knows about this, but I had read this. I wish I could remember where, but I had read that the problem with getting into that kind of food, something rich, is because it's cooked. That dogs can't handle cooked meat fat. But if it's raw meat fat, they can process it. Does anybody know anything about that?
Jeff, yeah.
Animal fat is animal fat. The body identifies it as fat.
Right, but once things are cooked, that is a form of processing. I mean, it changes
things. Right. So when something is cooked, it loses 75% its weight in water. So if it's a very fatty meat, then I could see that being an issue, but more so because the dog isn't accustomed to eating that food matter, not necessarily because it's beef fat or pork fat. In fact, pork fat is one of the best sources of omega-6 and 3 fatty acids. So yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a moderation thing, or the dog not being accustomed to eating that food matter.
Yeah,
that would be my guess.
Jeff, speaking about pork fat, I had a holistic vet tell me that bacon grease can help with dog seizures.
I could see that. Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm having
Yep.
trouble with that one, folks. I'm having some
Yep.
trouble.
Well, if you, I mean, you think about fatty acids and brain function, right? So
Does that work on humans too?
bacon has a different effect on humans.
Well, and of course for the dog, one without sodium nitrates.
Did
Oh,
Bonnie freeze up?
Yeah,
I
Bonnie,
did.
Bonnie froze
I
up. Everybody
did.
else
Yeah, you
was
did
moving.
froze up for a minute there. Yeah.
I sure did. And you couldn't hear me or
No, we
just
heard you. It's just
the
your
image.
picture
Yep,
froze. Yeah.
I did.
We miss anything, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll go if you don't mind.
No.
I mean,
Do I have a choice?
well, yeah, you could just mute me. But if you didn't mute me last week, I think I'm okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with if you can't supervise your dog and you can't trust your dog, obviously, and, you know, having a safe place where the dog could go, whether it's a crate or another room or a gate or some kind of management protocol, obviously is your first line of defense. So that being said, most of us, I think, have our dogs floating around, provided they're friendly dogs and they're kind of enjoying the festivities with everyone. So educate your visitors because Helen said it. Helen hit it right off the bat. You know, what's common sense to us is not common sense to other people, even other dog owners, especially let's say it's a new dog owner. They just might not be that far along in their pet guardianship to understand all the things. So educating your visitors, I think, is really important. Supervising the dog, and if there's children, right, that's part of the education process, educating the visitors.
Sure.
And, you know, obviously what you can and can't eat. I mean, we're not going to, you can't possibly get into the entire list of what's safe and what isn't, because we have different ethnicities, different, you know, menus. Sure. I mean, it's impossible. So we're talking generally, obviously, but if it's safe, moderation, like everyone said, because it doesn't matter what your dog eats. If it eats something different, even if it's safe, could cause some gastric upset. And, you know, so that's, I mean, I call that common sense too, but again, people aren't aware of it. So my rule of thumb to people is, if you have to ask, hey, what do you think? You think I can give this? As soon as you ask that question, the answer is always no. Because you're not sure, right? So if you're not sure, why use your dog as a guinea pig or cat, right? Or parrot in my case, because we'll give our parrot cooked chicken bones as opposed to our dogs who can't eat cooked chicken bones, right? So our parrots, they'll crack the bone open and lick the marrow out. They don't eat the bone. Like
Giving a bird.
Yeah, parrots love chicken bones.
Isn't there something a little sacrilegious about that?
Yeah, it's
bird eats bird. I mean,
it props up some feelings in me when I give it to them. I mean, I don't eat that stuff anyway, but they do like it anyway. Yeah, so moderation is important. Education, manage your environment. The do's and don'ts. I mean, yeasty products can cause bloat. If you have a deep-chested breed, you got to be careful of things that cause bloat, like anything with yeast in it. Green beans, which I can't believe how many people say how safe green beans are. Green beans contain saponins, they cause bloat. Especially if you have a deep-chested dog. And people, when I say deep-chested dog, they think pit bull, boxer, right? Yeah. Well, what about Boston Terriers and Shih Tzus? They are also deep-chested dogs. They just happen to be little, right? So you have to kind of think outside the box. You know, if you have a multi-dog household and you've had some issues with your dogs in the past, right? The aroma of food alone can cause dog-on-dog conflict. So that's another area where you have to consider, you know, kind of managing your environment. You know,
is this something that people can ask their vets about, or is this something that they should just do their own research about, like the green bean type of thing?
Oh yeah, they can, but I wouldn't ask a vet. I would ask a holistic vet or a veterinary nutritionist.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if you give your dog a green bean, are they going to bloat? No.
Right.
But, I mean, if the dog had.
But if the dog eats the green bean casserole, that could be a problem.
Aside from other things that are in the casserole.
Right.
I mean, certainly. You know, potatoes in moderation. Yeah, I guess. But you know, sweet potatoes, very sugary. That stuff can trigger all sorts of issues. Definitely have a poison control number handy prior to Thanksgiving. Have your emergency veterinary phone number handy before Thanksgiving, because no matter how much preparation you make, stuff happens, right? So better to be prepared. I mean, literally having a phone number handy can mean the difference between life and death.
Definitely. Better have your credit card handy too, by the way.
Right, yeah, exactly. Not a big deal, and a big vet bill, like Steve said.
Yeah.
And even poison control. I mean, they don't talk to you until you give them credit card number. So you're right. You got to be prepared with that. Have the number, be ready to give the card if you need to, or like you say, I mean, emergency vet. Let's hope nobody has to go there. I mean, as you said, there's a wide variety in terms of menu. Ham and all this other stuff. I mean, and if you're careful and you don't overdo it, I mean, hey, it's Thanksgiving. Give.
Joy, right? Yeah, like with the turkey. I mean, turkey is fine. There's nothing. People always say, "Oh, I really crash after Thanksgiving because of the tryptophan in turkey."
Right.
No, you don't.
No.
You crash because you picked out when you got home.
Because you gained 3 sizes.
You just ate 16 plates of food with tryptophan.
Oh, and what about? And everybody's stressed out on Thanksgiving. So take some CBD oil caps, give your dog some, and then everybody can chill out and be around those relatives that they might not want to be around.
Just don't talk about politics, Bon. It'll be all
don't right. And don't talk about e-collars as opposed to clickers with dog trainers, and you'll be okay.
Okay, well.
I tell, like, again, the whole rule of thumb is if you're in doubt, don't, right? And a little bit of turkey is fine, moderation. And at the end of the day, the most under offered food item during Thanksgiving is dog treats. You can give your dog treats. You can get a recreational chew or a cow ear or a bully stick, something of high value, that you can give your dog, and keep the food on the table whenever possible. And I don't know. We can go on, but that's just.
And we could, and we had a lot of fun with this one. And as you said, it's around the holidays and we're in a jolly mood, such as it is. So, we want to wish everybody out there a happy and a safe Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Thank you for watching this, and I want to thank all the panelists here and Jeff for getting us started today. I am Joel Filderman. I am not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are, and we had ourselves a good time today, and I hope you did too. So again, folks, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
See ya.
I'm hungry.
And like Steve says, it's complicated, y'all.
And with that, we'll see you, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.